Hello there, welcome to my channel. If you're new, do consider subscribing and joining the family, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always tuning in. So I'm going to go straight into the topic for today. It is Incorporated Trustees. Now this is a legal creation of the law that allows charities to run. Broadly speaking, I'm going to get into what the definition is and how it is described under the new Company and Allied Matters Act 2020. So I'm sure you've seen in the news or on Twitter or on social media talks about the effects of some provisions that they say the government is going to take over churches or mosques, or that there's some underlying intention of the government to do something shady. I totally understand people's views, and this also stems out of the fact that we live in a country where there is a lot of distrust in government, and so I'm hoping that at the end of this video I'd have shed some light to help you ease your mind, or at least give you an understanding of what the law says. If you're also interested in incorporating a legal entity that can allow you to carry on a charity that you have at heart, or some charitable purpose that you want to achieve, this might also be useful for you. What is an incorporated trustee, you ask, and how does it affect me? Well, charities and charitable purposes are what incorporated trustees covers, but it is wider than that. Section 823 to 850 of the new Company and Allied Matters Act applies to this entity of the law, and previously it was covered under Section 590. Also note that it was previously registered under Part C of the CAMA 1990, but now it is going to be registered under Part F of the CAMA 2020. Start with the basics. What is this body that we are all referring to when you say a church, a mosque, an NGO, a civil society, an association? There's so many categories under this incorporated trustee, but what is it? It is simply a body corporate, that is a corporate entity that can exist in perpetuity, meaning it has perpetual succession and can hold and deal with property. It can also sue and be sued because it is a legal entity, it is alive and well. Okay, so this is the legal structure that an incorporated trustee gives. Do you understand? Under limited liability company, we have limited liability. Here it is a body corporate, perpetual succession. It can hold property and deal with property, and what it can sue and be sued. Until this new act is gazetted, the 1990 law still applies. Okay, so we don't have a date where it would be authenticated as a law and then gazetted in the laws of the Federation by the National Assembly. Until then, we still have this CAMA 1990 that we're working with. So now let's talk about Section 839 of the Company and Allied Matters Act 2020. This has been the hula baloo. Oh my God, I've heard so many opinions. I've seen Twitter threads. I have attended the seminars, the conferences on the CAMA 2020. Wow, so many opinions. We're going to look at exactly what the wording is, and then I'm going to tell you what I've come to put together based on the opinions I've heard. Hopefully it allays your fears, or at least it gives you an understanding of what the act actually says and what the implications may be. Because remember, this is a law. There's an interpretation of the law. If there's a law that is against the Constitution, if it's inconsistent with what the Constitution says, then that law, those provisions will be invalid. It has been done before, okay? There was a time when you had to go and get a permit to go out and protest. You had to go and get a permit from the police. That provision was declared to be unconstitutional, okay? So laws can be made mistakenly or otherwise, and you can go to court and question it and query the validity or the legality of that provision. So this provision, if churches really do have issues with it, or mosques or religious institutions have issues with the provisions, or any other association actually that has an issue with it, guess what? When it does become authenticated and becomes a law that is alive, you can go to court on that section and question it. Now let's get into section 839. Section 839 gives CAC discretionary power. It says it may, by order, remove trustees and then appoint interim managers, one manager or managers, to run the affairs of an association or an incorporated trustee. Gives a clause and says that the commission reasonably believes that this association is being mismanaged. The other thing is that either there's public interest that is being eroded upon, or there's some fraud that CAC has seen in the dealings, or there's some property that needs to come in or is being handled in such a way that is improper. Then CAC can step in and then say, we're going to appoint these people to run the affairs of this association, just so that the aims and objectives are met. Everybody's just like, what? How can you come into our organization and tell us what to do? But you need to understand that we are a country that sort of mirrors a lot of our laws based on what we see in foreign countries. And if you go and check the Charities Act of the UK, there are similar provisions there in terms of showing compliance with following what you have said you're going to do and complying with the laws that say you cannot use the assets. The positive rationale behind that provision is that CAC is supposed to act as a protector and a regulator for ensuring that the objectives of the association are met. Now, this section goes further to say that in subsection 2, it talks about by court order. So CAC can suspend trustees. 1/5 of the members or the commission itself can apply by petition to a court and say, we need you to suspend the trustees of this association because we think there's some foul play going on. Where a court appoints the interim managers, it can also say what the duties and powers are, and those can be the duties and powers of the incorporated trustees. Now this provision goes further, which is where we're enraged, okay, to say that the commission can apply to a court and then remove any person, an employee, an officer of the association or an agent of the association. That's the thing. Like, although it says that you can't remove them for more than 12 months, but guess what? You are saying that not only can they take out the trustees, they can take out people working there. The trustees feel like you're trying to take our association away from us. These provisions are quite elaborate, to be honest. Still in section 839 is quite a long section. It says that CAC can appoint additional trustees. So I can actually understand the outrage that is going on in the media. It also says that the property of the association can be vested in a custodian. Not only can you take out the trustees, the employees, and any other person, the property of Incorporated Trustee can be vested in a custodian, where CAC applies to a court for that to happen. The commission can also apply to a court to appoint interim managers to manage the property, make debtors pay. It can come in and say that not use, or you cannot run the decision the way you're running it, or use the property the way you're running it. I can see where the vast powers are being vested in the commission. One important thing that I want people to calm down and listen to, I'm going to read this from what the Act says in 839, okay? So yes, all these powers have been vested in the commission, but listen to this. Where at any time the commission has made an inquiry into the affairs of an association, so guess what? It's not just that they have a feeling that there's a reasonable cause to believe that there's misappropriation here. An inquiry has to be undertaken, okay? Subsection 7 says, where at any time after the commission has made an inquiry into the affairs of the association. This implies already that there has to be an inquiry for those steps to be taken. It is satisfied as to the matters mentioned in subsection 1, which I talked about earlier. It may suspend or remove any trustee who has been responsible or privy to the misconduct or mismanagement, or whose conduct contributed or facilitated it. So it's not that they'll just take out anybody. It's not like they'll just come and take you all out. They will have investigated and found out what is going on. So if it's just a few of the trustees that are involved, those are the trustees they will take out and appoint new trustees for. Okay, and if it's then all the trustees that are involved, then they will all be removed. There's a process already laid out here, because there are, the sections that talk about, the CAC is going to make regulations and be more specific. But when the Act covers some of this and lays some fears that we have, and there's a process that is going to have to be followed. Now, it now says that to may suspend or remove by court order establish a scheme for the administration of the association. So it's not just that they take out trustees. Okay, they can do that, but they're going to have to also apply to court for certain steps to be taken. So understand that fact and calm down. The law is not trying to be against you, okay? We're just trying to bring the law up to speed to where other countries are in terms of regulating their charities or their incorporated trustees as we have it here. Another thing I want you to note is section 839 subsection 11. I'm going to read this out also. So I just want you to calm down, okay? There's a process. Nobody's just going to come kick you out, and even if they do, you have legal remedies, okay? So subsection 11 of section 839 says the commission shall only exercise its powers under this section in respect of any association with the approval of the minister. This should just help you realize that there are already some checks and balances put in place in this act to ensure that this particular power that is so vast is not misused. I already said in the beginning that I understand where NGOs are coming from, where associations are coming from, where churches, mosques are coming from. Nobody wants to just wake up one day and find out that everything is gone, especially when you have a goal at heart. But again, this is mostly because there is distrust in the system. If we trust our system and our legal structure to be there for us when things like this happen, nobody's gonna have worries or fears. For everybody that's been asking me about what is going on with the CAC and churches and mosques, yes, there are new provisions, but they are simply to ensure regulation. This wasn't a very regulated sector prior to this time. So, when you've been kind of running loose and nobody's really monitoring what you're doing, it can be quite when structures come in. I also have pause in the sense that I feel like sometimes laws are made and they just create loopholes for harassment and abuse. But the intent behind the law is good. The provisions are not as crazy as it's being made to sound in the media. Number one, there's a process that needs to be followed. Number two, that power is going to be exercised with the approval of the minister. So there's some oversight. Do you understand? I hope that this allays a few fears and gives you some understanding as to what the Act is trying to achieve. We're just trying to come up to par with what the Charities Act has, where in the UK, once you start acting a certain way, you are no longer considered a charity, which is what a few associations are doing here, or where you cannot deal with property in a certain way because it's not yours. So this area needs to be regulated. This is for your own benefit. This ensures transparency in your leadership, and you should want transparency in leadership. The Act has a lot of things that are trying to open up transparency requirements. In my opinion, transparency should be welcome. It's just the enforcement that we hope won't be abused. But if it's not abused in terms of how it is enforced, then this is good for you. How many of the associations we're talking about file annual returns? How many of them can we actually go to CAC and say, I want to see their books, and we're going to see? Let's understand why the law is and what the law is for. It's to help us. I guess I should start with this general idea of what exactly this entity entails. The purpose of this entity being created is to, number one, help a group of people achieve what you can call noble causes. So it is not exactly for the purposes that we are used to, that we see, such that we're so comfortable, and I guess a lot of people are riled up. Understand that the purpose of this entity is to ensure that a group of people achieve a noble cause that they are going towards. there are some specifics that have been laid out. For example, it has to be a community, an association, or a body that appoints the trustees. Now, this community, association, or body should be bound together by religion, by custom, by kinship, or by nationality, or by any other body. So there's 4 specifics laid out, but it could also be a group of people coming together. Now, we have a community, a body, or an association that are bound together either by custom, religion, nationality, or kinship. So this association should be established for charitable purposes or for the purpose of educational reasons, for something that is scientific or literary, for social development, cultural development, or developmental purposes, and for religious purposes also, or sporting. So there's specified purposes for which you can establish this particular entity. But of course, charitable purpose covers a lot of other things that are not specified under that section. It's important to note, like I said, why this entity even exists at all and the purpose for which it is given a legal personality is to achieve a common good. The common good is a thread that you must remember when you're thinking about, oh, why is this even here? And why are these regulations the way they are couched or being framed? Because it is important that this entity achieve the purpose for which it is being given a life of its own. Note that CAC would now be classifying Incorporated Trustees according to their aims and objectives. And I think this is a good direction for the Act to have taken, in the sense that not all Incorporated Trustees have the same aim and objective, and so regulating them may not be similar. Classifying them would help in creating regulations that apply and are helpful to each class of Incorporated Trustee. Now, to register, you need to do a name search at the Corporate Affairs Commission. That's the first thing to do. Note that Incorporated Trustee of will always be at the front of the name. So no matter how you've seen your NGOs or your church or your mosque in writing publicly, Incorporated Trustees is in their document of registration. Okay, a group comes together, they appoint trustees. The trustees are then taken to CAC, and there's an application made for them to become a corporate body, now known as Incorporated Trustees. Previously, one trustee could be appointed for a body, an association of people, but under the new act, it says that 2 or more trustees were appointed. So note this difference. This distinction is going to be important as to how you register and when you can register, the things that you require. Also, you need to note that the people who can be appointed as trustees need to be of legal age, of sound mind, not people that have been convicted of fraud in the recent 5 years or within the 5 years that the person has or is going to be appointed as a trustee. And of course, you cannot be an undischarged bankrupt. So that are the criteria for you to be a trustee. Be a good person, be an adult, and be of a sound mind, and don't, have dealt with your finances such that you are now in bankruptcy proceedings or you have been declared bankrupt. Please note that as an association, you don't have to be registered. So you can be a community, you can be a group of people that believe in a certain thing, you can carry on activities and whatever without registration. This isn't a compulsory thing. But when you want perpetual succession, when you want to be recognized as an entity, then you go and register. Okay? When you're registering and you've checked your name, the next thing to do is to fill out the CAC IT form. It's a form 1. Once you fill that out, you also fill out the form that requires the name, occupation, and addresses of the trustees, and then you submit a constitution. The minutes of the meeting where the trustees were appointed is also going to be filed. Declaration or verification that everything that has been submitted is accurate and correct. Now, once you've applied to CAC, there's going to be a point where you have to publish in the newspaper, 2 newspapers, one where the IT is going to be situated and one national daily. And you basically publish what your aims and objectives are, your name, and people are then allowed, or the general public is given 28 days to send in a notice saying that we don't agree with the registration of this business, and they will state the reason why, even an objection to the registration, this is going to be considered. So if there is no objection, then you move forward, and then CAC registers you, issues you your certificate of incorporation. It's quite a lengthy process because your constitution has to contain a lot of details of how the organization or how the incorporated trustee is going to be run. You have a secretary, there will be details of the secretary being put in. If you have a common still, if you want one, that is also going to be submitted, but these are not compulsory. Also, the person that is registering, there will be a document showing that the association approved of that person going ahead to register the incorporated trustee. You can see that all these things are being done. There has to be shown how the group or the body agreed to carry on this particular action. So it is something, again, have at the back of your mind that the most important thing is that there's something communal. It's a group of people that have similar aims and objectives that they want to achieve. And I've already mentioned the list. It has to be something lawful, and I've mentioned the list of the things that should be covered. And of course, we have that general clause that says charitable purposes. So that's why there's quite a number of associations or incorporated trustees that may vary from the specifics of the act. So now we have a registered incorporated trustee, a registered NGO, a registered church, mosque, association, community, people, friends, registered. In fact, now people register their school reunions and their classes. So you can register a lot of, as long as there's a common objective, then you can use the IT. Important to note, when you want to decide what entity you're going for, this particular entity, you cannot make profit with it. This particular entity, I've said, is for what? A general cause that is good and noble. It's not about money. Anything, any fund that comes in, any property you own, assets, funds, anything that comes in has to be applied to what you have registered with CAC as your objects and your aims. You can always change that from time to time by passing a resolution in your meetings and then filing that. So you can do that, but note that you're not gonna be able to make profit, share dividend, go and register a company. For incorporated trustees, NGOs, churches, whatever you want to know it as, the main and underlying factor is that there is no profit making, no money sharing. Everything that comes in has to be used for the goals set by the association. Okay, so if you want to achieve a literary cause, all your money has to go into the research, the writing, you can employ people and pay them. But for like countries like the US, there's a percentage limit on how much you can spend of your income on expenditure that is running costs. Do you understand? That is not yet the law in Nigeria or a regulation, but I just want to let you know that in other countries that is something. Okay, so there's a way the running should be transparent and should be ethical. Note that CAC has the power under this new act to merge associations. If you're an association that has the same trustees, CAC can merge you. If your objects are the same, CAC can decide, has the discretion to merge those two incorporated trustees. I see it as a good thing because it means a bigger body with more resources. That's how I see it. But you can think about it in the sense that if for a group and we come together and this is how we want to run, we may not want to be joined to another group of people. But the truth is, I feel like the more the merrier. If you have the same aims and objectives, why not? But let me know what you think in the comment section about this section that provides for CAC's power to merge two associations that have similar trustees or similar aims and objectives. Anything that is left in the pockets of an association, if it comes to the fact that, oh, we're going to dissolve this association, guess what? You have to give it to another association, or you have to apply to the objects and aims of that association for it to be established. Do you understand? So you cannot pay your members. That's not legal. That's going to be illegal conduct, okay? Of course, an association or an incorporated trustee can have staff and employ people and pay them. If you're an officer or a servant of the association, that is, you're employed by the association, you can receive remuneration that is sufficient for the services you're rendering. Let me emphasize again that if you're a member of an association, you cannot be paid directly or indirectly. If you're a member of the governing council or governing body that is established aside the trustees to manage the aims and objectives and the management of the incorporated trustee, you are not supposed to be receiving any form of remuneration, except, you know, it's for out of cost expenses for rent by the trustee or for a service that you render to disburse the funds of the association. Please note that and be careful when you are, you know, operating your incorporated trustee. So the other things that you should pay attention to are that incorporated trustees can enter contracts, okay? They can be bound by contract that they enter. Incorporated trustees also need to keep active bank accounts. So the Act provides that where there are dormant accounts in a bank can report to CAC, and then CAC would then, you know, send out notices to the incorporated trustee to ask why they have dormant accounts, and the association can be closed down. So you need to be careful not to have dormant bank accounts, okay? There are a lot more details about, you know, what will happen if there's money in the dormant account and a lot of things, but I'm not going to get into that. The next thing is that the incorporated trustee also needs to file annual returns, okay, and keep audited accounts. So you need to have accounting records, you need to have audited accounts that are filed with CAC. Your annual returns will talk about what the occupation and addresses of your trustees are and any changes that have gone on, you know, within the incorporated trustee during that year. Also, you need to keep those records, financial records, for about 6 years. Note that the new provision is that CAC can, I already mentioned that, merge two associations, but guess what? Two associations can also by themselves decide to merge, which is really good. Also, remember, the trustee can be dissolved either by court order by the association members or by CAC applying, you know, making a petition to a court. So that will be, you know, it's almost like we've gone through the life start and the end of an incorporated trustee. I hope that I covered exactly what you wanted me to cover. I hope I didn't go off on a tangent in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Do remember to like, do remember to share, and do remember to hit that subscribe button, and also hit the notification bell. That way, every time I post a video, you get notified. So if you've subscribed, you'll see a bell that appears. Just click on it, and then every time I post a video, you'll be notified. Thank you for joining me again, and I'll see you in my next video.